It is time for another VLGA Connect Governance update. It's more than imminent. It is here with Stephen Cooper from the VLGA. Hi, Steve.
Hello, Chris.
And we've got a special guest in the waiting room. We'll let her in just a moment, but I just wanted to touch base with you for your thoughts on our Role of the Mayor live panel session yesterday, which I've got to say, I know I always say this, but I think it was our best yet. I really do.
Chris, you are sounding like Juan Antonio Samaranch at that succession of Olympic Games, that they're all the best ever. But that was a terrific panel, which I think is available on the VLGA website as a recording. Nolene Duff, Melissa Scadden and Peter Stevenson were just an excellent panel. And a lot of really interesting stuff to come out, Chris.
Some observations, Steve, just briefly before Hannah joins us. It's still a surprise how many people, candidates, community people, don't really understand the difference of the role of councillor and mayor as opposed to CEO and getting involved in the operation and the operational parts of the council organisation.
I think, Chris, if you looked at the distinction between how that session was planned and what we thought would come up, that is absolutely on the money. It was surprising how many questions didn't get the distinction between those respective roles. How many made assumptions about the powers of the council, and a couple of quite concerning ones in terms of the employment arrangements with the chief executive officer. And the sort of the notion and the intent of the various types of meetings that councils attend. So it was really good that we had a panel that was able to give those things an airing.
And the other thing for me was this this mystery about how the mayor is selected and what that process is all about. And some people still not realising it's the group of councillors that make that determination.
Hopefully that too, and a really a resonating theme through the session, Chris, about the importance of the mayor setting the tone and the communication and resolving conflict within the group early, because of the costs once you get into those arbitration and conduct panel type processes being quite enormous. So a really important role of, working out how to work together and manage conflict early for the group.
I want to get your thoughts on some of the information that's trickling through about elections. But firstly, we have Hannah Duncan-Jones from Local Government Victoria waiting to speak with us. So we'll find out all about where it's at in terms of the Local Government Act implementation. Lovely to see Hannah from Local Government Victoria once again. Welcome.
Thank you. And it's great to be back.
Hannah?
We had some terrific feedback from the last time you were on, so I think people are going to get used to hearing some of the latest intelligence out of LGV through you on this program, so we do appreciate that. And of course, exciting times at the moment with elections happening. We're in the vote counting phase. What's your mail on how the actual ballots have come back in, Hannah?
Yeah, look, the mail is really, really good. As I understand it, there is a higher response rate at this stage than there was in the 2016 election. So it seems that, people have been really looking at their local area and wanting to participate in the democracy around local government elections. And that was seen in the number of people who undertook candidate training, who then became candidates, and is following through as people mail their votes in, with the last day for votes being tomorrow. So it is really exciting to see it's tracking well ahead. And I understand that there's some very high percentages in some councils in terms of the receipts, and that it is tracking well ahead of 2016. So it's fantastic.
In terms of actual voting, both Steve and I have been watching the VEC website with great interest, but there's not much to see there yet.
Yeah, so the VEC will start uploading the results once voting had that time frame between the election and the receipt of votes has closed, and that will be tomorrow. So its final day for receipt of votes is tomorrow, and once that's happened, we'll start seeing those results uploaded. So you can see where people have been elected unopposed. That's just a few of the council seats across Victoria, but you'll be starting to see more over the weekend and into next week. And you can see that the VEC have got their website well established for everybody to go in and see their local results and see what happened through that democratic process.
The governance and integrity regulations are now in place, and that's bringing a range of things forward that will apply to this next phase of inducting of councils. Do you want to touch on some of those significant changes for us, Hannah?
Yeah, so look, there are quite a few significant changes in the governance and integrity regulations. And one of the first things that all councillors need to do once they come in to office is to take the oath of office. And importantly, the regulations in these COVID times provide for that to be done electronically, and it doesn't need to be witnessed. So you just need the councillor and the CEO to be connected electronically to undertake that oath in the appropriate format. So that makes it much easier for councillors. Importantly, there was information in relation to the council induction process and how that will be undertaken, what subjects need to be covered, and there's more information on Engage Vic about how you might undertake that induction that's been worked through a co-design process. A big change in an area that is really tricky for everybody is understanding a conflict of interest. And so the new Act simplifies that. And so it's a general or a material conflict, much simpler than the previous Act. And it's just one of those things that everybody will need to work through and make sure that they understand. But I guess with any conflict of interest or potential conflict of interest, it's always good just to have a conversation to somebody and say, you know, this is my situation. Do you think I should? Or I think I shouldn't because this is my situation, and talk it through so that you get an understanding, because conflicts are about perception. And it's really important that you understand how your actions are going to be perceived. So that's really, really important in relation to that. Personal interest returns have been revised, and there is some changes in the requirements, particularly in relation to officers. And now it is the CEO's prerogative to nominate which officers need to fill in a personal interest return. And they'll need to undertake that by thinking through what is the role of this officer, what statutory functions do they hold, why would it be important from transparency and integrity perspectives for a personal interest return to be made. But it's also really important to note that if you've been a previous councillor or if you're an existing councillor employee, this starts a whole new regime. So for new councillors, they need to do their new personal interest return within 30 days of coming into office. And with officers, they need to do it within 30 days of being requested by the CEO to do so. We're going to very, very shortly, if not imminently, have up on the LGV Engage website some frequently asked questions around personal interest to answer some of those tricky questions that people will look at when they fill out the form, and also an example personal interest return so that, you know, councils can pick that up and if it suits their needs, use it as is or put it on their templates, those sorts of things. But it covers off what the regulations require to be covered off.
Hannah, the standards of conduct as well are covered by those regulations, and they're going to be important as councils develop their code of conduct, which they have 4 months to do. Is this significantly different, do you think, to what's been in place in the past?
Look, I'm hoping so, because I'm hoping that what is being put in place is a system that really enables people to understand the behaviours that will accord or not accord with those standards. Now, we did undertake a consultative piece in relation to those standards before they went into the regulations. We consulted, we had 4, we now have 5 standards. So it's important to go back and have a look and make sure that you're across those. The main changes were in relation to ensuring that we were aligned with other legislation, the Constitution, those sorts of things, that we weren't in any way impeding on people's rights by putting those standards in place. So that's really, really important. So really it's, you know, treatment of others, performing your role as councillor, compliance with good governance. The councillor must not discredit or mislead the council or public, but standards do not limit robust political debate. And so it's really about behaviours and how those behaviours will align with those standards. And hopefully the way they're worded, the fact that they're uniform across the state so everybody can learn together and talk to each other about those standards will help us ensure that it's clear and people know how to behave and how not to behave, and to uphold those standards, which is such an important thing in public office.
Hannah, I presume in that sense there's a distinction between robust debate and aggressive or abusive debate. So any comments on that one?
Yeah, look, it was important to ensure that the standards didn't in any way stop people from being involved in what is really important part of democracy, that robust debate. But if that debate is around playing the person instead of the ball, those sorts of things, then it crosses the line. And if it in any way could be deemed as harassment or discrimination, again, it crosses the line. So it's about how you have that robust debate that's on topic and sticks to the topic and doesn't bring in any unnecessary behaviours.
And allows, one would assume, for that to happen, but once a council decision is made in the chamber, that then councillors are under some obligation to not discredit, to go back to the words in that fourth point, the council once that decision is made, even if they disagree with it.
Absolutely. So, you know, it's obviously there is still rights that people have, but if you have come to a decision as a council, then it is about upholding that decision and then allowing that decision to be acted on. And not utilising behaviours or methods that would discredit that decision.
Hannah, can we just touch on allowances quickly before we let you go? Councillor allowances, mayoral allowances. My understanding is the current system is still in place and will be for quite some time.
That's correct. So the tribunal will be making the decision next time in relation to allowances, and we expect that to be happening sort of towards the middle of next year. And so in the current environment, the allowances have been rolled over exactly as they are. And there will be then a process that the tribunal will advertise and talk about how they're going to undertake that process. We're already in discussions with them so that they're getting up to speed on what is a different tier of government than what they've been operating in, because their role currently is around the Victorian Parliament. And so, you know, there's some differences between those two tiers of government that they need to understand, and we'll keep on having those discussions, and we'd expect to hear more about that process sort of in 2021.
So can I just clarify, the current system doesn't envisage the ability to pay a deputy mayor a different allowance to that of councillor or mayor, but the new act does provide for that possibility. Is it your view that the tribunal will make a call on whether there should be or could be an allowance for deputy mayors?
So it's something for them to consider, and so I won't put words into their mouth, but it's something that they could certainly consider. Whether they make a call on it or not will be for them to determine.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I know with new councillors coming in, and they're reading the Act, there's already some questions coming to CEOs about that very matter. Steve, have you got anything for Hannah before we let her step off the grill, so to speak?
Thanks, Chris. It's the 29th of October today. Hannah, I'm just wondering if there are any more LGV Connect episodes coming up.
Oh, excellent that you asked that, Steve. So we've got one tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We already have over 200 people registered to attend, but it's going to be a really exciting LGV Connects about reporting back really widely on the work we've been doing through co-design on the Integrated Strategic Planning and Reporting Framework. And there's some great speakers lined up. So please, if you've got the opportunity, log in at 1 o'clock to LGV Connects.
I've got to say, Steve, I thought the VLGA LG Pro was pulling a good audience for our panels, but you know, Hannah's getting over 200 to an LGV Connect. We may as well just all give up and go home.
Not that we're bitter and twisted about it, Chris.
Not at all. Thank you, Hannah. We really do appreciate you coming on the program on a regular basis and giving us those insights. All the best for these next few very busy weeks, and we'll look forward to catching up again soon.
Excellent. Thank you.
That's been a really useful recap of where it's at with Hannah, Steve. I want to come back to council elections before we wrap it up for this week. A lot of activity on Twitter. We're seeing a lot of information from scrutineers. That's really the only source of information at the moment. What are your observations? Can we draw too much from this at this point?
Well, I think, Chris, it's been interesting that obviously scrutineers have been posting the information that they've received from particularly the electronic counts being conducted so far. A lot of, but not always, it seems an apparent benefit of incumbency so far, with some quite well-known incumbent councillors polling strongly.
Yeah, I'm seeing the same. Some really strong personal votes for some existing councillors. Yet to really get a feel for whether the gender balance is going to be improved or changed in any way at this point.
No, not at the moment, Chris. And I did notice, just as at this morning, the VEC have the templates set up and ready to go. So any keen election watchers, I think from tomorrow, as Hannah said, when the receipt of votes closes, it's seeming that the VEC is set to go with the posting of information. So keep an eye on that website.
We will indeed. That's probably going to take up our next few days, or a fair bit of it. Thank you, Steve. Great to catch up as always. We'll see you again soon on the governance update.
Thanks, Chris.
Steve Cooper with us. That's the governance update for this week from VLGA Connect.